I think it was at IBC in Amsterdam in September of 2019, Friday the 13th, in Hall 13, that I stood and watched Sony launch the new FX9. I ordered one straight away. I so wanted that glorious full-frame image and the game-changing variable ND, all in a professional format that I just knew my clients would love. Unfortunately, just 7 months later, I was seriously questioning my decision. It was all Sony's fault, and I think they might be about to do it again. Let me explain. Don't get me wrong, I love the FX9. It was without doubt the best camera I'd ever bought. Also, my clients really liked that full-frame image, and for the first time, I enjoyed usable autofocus and the variable ND. Apart from that silly 19.5 volt laptop power brick, this was as close to the perfect camera that I'd ever owned. So what went wrong? Well, in July 2020, Sony launched the A7S Mark III. And I think we can all agree that the video specs on this little mirrorless consumer camera blew everyone away. I was only half joking when I asked on what was then called Twitter, why shouldn't I sell my FX9 and just buy two A7S IIIs? I got loads of replies, mainly involving ergonomics, XLRs, viewfinders, timecode, and telling me to grow up. But what was interesting is almost nobody mentioned the picture quality. What Sony demonstrated with the A7S III was what was technically possible just 6 months after launching the FX9. It had better processors, better autofocus, it could shoot faster frame rates, and even had a raw output. Obviously, I was joking, I didn't sell my FX9. But I did buy the A7S III to use as a B camera, and it's still a great camera. To be honest, as an owner-operator, we have to take our client's perception into account when we make our camera purchasing decisions. Some, shall we say, less technically aware clients want you to turn up with a big, shiny camera simply to justify your reassuringly expensive cost. It's sad, but it's true. So I couldn't sell my FX9 until just 6 months after the A7S III, Sony launched the FX6. And that really caused a problem. You see, the FX6 is basically a Sony A7S III with XLRs, variable ND and timecode. Talk about Sony shooting the FX9 in the face. I agonized over whether I should swap cameras for more than a year. Let's look at the decision-making problem while ignoring the cost of each camera. The FX9 has a downsampled 6K sensor which will give you more colour resolution in 4K. It comes with a proper viewfinder loop, has an additional SDI output, it has Genlock if you need to sync in a broadcast environment, the XLRs are built into the body, and better ergonomics, particularly if you like to shoot from the shoulder. The FX6 has faster frame rates, 120p at 4K without cropping, better autofocus, a raw output. It can use cheaper memory cards and uses half the power so your batteries last twice as long, and it's less than half the weight and size. These are all obvious differences, but there's still two big elephants in the room, and these are difficult decisions because they're both quite subjective. The first is client perception. Do you look as professional when using a smaller camera? And yes, I know it shouldn't matter. Well, after almost a year of using my FX6, I can honestly say that none of my clients have even noticed. So maybe it doesn't matter. The more important issue is picture quality. The FX9 has a 6K sensor which downsamples to a 4K output. Technically, this will definitely give you higher colour resolution, but do you have to pixel peep to see it? The 6K sensor also gives you more options to crop into, say, a Super 35 size sensor while still providing a 4K output. The sensor in the FX6 is only 4.2K, so you have less options to crop unless you're shooting HD. I could shoot a chart with both cameras and demonstrate that the 6K sensor is better, but in the real world, shooting real 4K pictures, I don't think you'll be able to spot which camera is which. On top of everything else, the FX6 is noticeably cleaner in low light, and you could always output ProRes RAW if you need to maximize the available quality. The RAW output was a big thing for me. Obviously you can get RAW out of the FX9, but that involves spending another £2,500 on a monstrosity of a back end that makes the whole camera unusably awkward in many situations, and you still need the Atomos Ninja to make it work. You can see which way I was heading. After a year of indecision, my mind was finally made up when ProAV were offering a deal I couldn't ignore on a new FX6. And I love it. Obviously you still need to buy an FX9 viewfinder loop and then upgrade the monitor support. I went with a left field kit from Bright Tangerine, which is a little pricey but beautifully made. So I'm very happy with my new, almost perfect camera, the FX6. But why am I telling you this story now? Well, obviously it feels like Sony have let FX9 owners down, but I fear they might be about to do it again. I find it difficult to believe that Sony weren't aware of what their new A7S III was going to be capable of, while simultaneously launching what we now realise was an underpowered FX9 just 6 months earlier. And now we have the Burano, obviously named and designed to be a little Venice too, but this camera is being actively ordered by owner-operators, people who are seriously looking for an F55 or even an FX9 replacement. And it does look amazing. Full frame 8K with variable ND and even in-body stabilization. With internal XOCN recording, this definitely looks like the perfect camera. But wait, did you see what Sony have just launched? 3 months after the Burano announcement, we now have the new Alpha 9 Mark III. Now, I know the A9 III sensor isn't currently large enough for 8K video, but this camera also has amazing processing power, AI autofocus, and most importantly, a full-frame global shutter. The only question I'd ask is, how long before we see that global shutter in a full-frame cinema camera? And how many Burano owners are going to suddenly wish they had a global shutter? And so the cycle continues. Thanks for watching. Oh, and while you were watching this video, about 1,800 people were born. Let's call them future subscribers.